Hello there, David Risley here from the Blog Marketing Academy at blogmarketingacademy.com, and today we're going to continue our list building challenge. We're going to talk about action number 3 that you can take. Now, building your email list is always a marathon. It's not a race. It's a constant, consistent effort and something that you're always going to be doing. You can never really call this done because it's something that you always need to be working on. Now, if all you do is throw up an opt-in form with a single lead magnet and then just sit there and start waiting it out, well, you're just not doing it right, all right? We've already talked about how you can magnify your list building power by creating additional lead magnets and content upgrades. But what about the actual opt-in forms? How do you improve those and make those things work better? The answer is split testing. Okay. Now, almost any decent opt-in form plugin is going to make it pretty easy to conduct a split test. Okay. Now, let me back up real quick before we move on. If you're not familiar with the idea of split testing, basically what this means is that you have 2 different versions of, in this case, an opt-in form. And the plugin will automatically split the traffic between those 2 different versions. And so every time the page is refreshed for different people, some people might see version A of the opt-in form. Some people might see version B of the opt-in form. And the idea is that your plugin will sit there and measure the conversion rates of both in order to find out which one works better. Okay, and so by doing split testing, it's this constant, continual improvement of our conversion rates on our blog because we're running these split tests in order to find out what works and what doesn't. Now, in the last episode, we talked about Thrive Leads as the recommended plugin for doing your list building on WordPress. And yes, Thrive Leads does make split testing pretty easy. Now, there's a decent chance you already maybe knew about split testing, okay? If you're one of those guys who already knew what split testing was, great. Thing is, do you actually do it? Now, it's okay to admit no, because many people don't. And I'm very much guilty of failing to do enough split testing, even though I've got all the systems to do it. But I'm doing it a lot more on various opt-ins around my site lately. And sometimes you get some pretty radical improvements in the conversion rates. Sometimes things you thought would improve the situation just simply don't. They just fall flat on their face. Sometimes they just make the conversion rate worse. I had one slide-in opt-in form that when I built that thing, I could have practically guaranteed to you that it would convert better. I mean, it was just great. It was a beautiful form, all right? The original form was converting at 5.21%, all right? But as of now, my gorgeous, beautiful new opt-in form that I thought was going to work great is converting at 3.16%. Pretty crazy, right? The boring form that I was like really bored with actually was converting better. But if I didn't test this out and I just went with my gut, I would have actually lowered my conversion rate and just kept on moving and not even known. So your specific action for today is to pick an opt-in form that's on your site right now and set up a split test for it. Now, I'd recommend going for your lowest hanging fruit first. For instance, if you have any site-wide opt-in form that's maybe stuffed into your sidebar, or maybe you have an exit pop, or you have a slide-in form or something like that, go ahead and start your split testing with that one, okay? Because that's the one that sees the most traffic. So you could do a few things here, like try a different lead magnet and just see if that one seems more compelling to them. You could try a different design for the opt-in form, maybe change the colors a little bit and see if that works a little bit better. You could try different titles for the same lead magnet and see if that converts a little bit better. You might try a different image, or maybe if your original opt-in form has no image, that you put an image into version B and see if maybe the image helps your conversion rate. Just set it up and let it run for a little while, okay? And depending on your traffic level, it may take a little bit of time for that test to complete so that you have enough data to make it a meaningful thing, all right? I'd suggest running that split test for a minimum of 100 opt-ins, okay? You can always quit the test early and launch the winning test version if it becomes crystal clear that you've got a real winner on your hands. I mean, if it just, like, one is just vastly outperforming the other one, then maybe you turn off the split test early and see what happens. But generally speaking, I'd recommend that you shoot for around 100 opt-ins on the split test before you make your final verdict. Now, split testing opt-in forms within your blog content can actually be a pretty useful thing to do. For instance, any of the content upgrades that you might have. We talked about that in the last episode. That's a great place to be running split tests right inside of your blog content, okay? For instance, we talked about those 3-step opt-in forms in the last episode. Well, go ahead and test it out. Don't take my word for it. Go ahead and run a split test where you have your original opt-in form and then version B is a 3-step opt-in form and see which one works for you. And just go with what works for you. Don't do it just because I said so. All right. Now, I would also recommend setting up your test so that it will end automatically. All right. I don't know about you, but I sometimes just forget that I even have a split test running. And sometimes if I let it run too long, it just sits there and the net effect is essentially a lower conversion rate because the losing version just keeps on running way longer than it has to. Okay. And so many split test systems, and Thrive Leads is one of them, you can actually set the settings for the test to end automatically when there is a winner. Okay. So go ahead and set that so that you don't forget and waste your time, okay? Now, keep in mind that I'm going to be linking to Thrive Leads again in the show notes here. And yes, that is an affiliate link. You likely already know that. That's kind of how this stuff works. But trust me, I've tried almost all the different opt-in plugins out there. Thrive Leads is, at least in my opinion, the best one. And I'm using this tool pretty much every day. Thrive Leads is what I use personally at the Blog Marketing Academy. And I simply wouldn't recommend it to you if I couldn't stand behind it. Okay? So your assignment for today, pick an opt-in form on your site and start a split test on it. Over time, you're going to improve your list building. There's no doubt about that. That's just the way split testing works, okay? I've got one other form that's in an active test right now, and it looks like my new version is going to more than double my pre-existing opt-in rate. So this can be a really fruitful thing for you to do. It's just one of those things that you need to actually take the time to do. The great thing here is that it doesn't take that long to set up a split test. And then once it's running, you kind of go off and go about your business. You know, as long as you constantly have split tests running, then you are always improving your list building. Okay. Thanks so much for listening. I encourage you to take action on this today. I'll see you next time.